Welcome all. Thank you for coming. I'm developer Ali from IBM. I am just going to get your lovely RoboGirls champions on the stage to present this. But thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. There we go.
Yeah, hi. So I hope everyone can see me, and can you guys hear me? Cool. I feel like that's always the best way to start. Yeah, hi guys. Thank you so much for coming to our event today. I hope you guys get a lot out of it. So if you guys already don't know, so RoboGirls is a not-for-profit global organization, and we look to encourage female participation in STEM by inspiring, empowering, and engaging young girls in STEM through workshops. So if you're interested in volunteering at our workshops, or getting more involved with our society, there is a link in the platform. So if you just click on our logo, we'll take you to our website. Like I said, thank you guys so much for joining today. So we have our lovely IBM representatives, Alison Hare, Gloria Chen, and Christine, who will go through the workshop, which will focus on career path and goal setting, networking, and communications, and interview and application tips. So I hope you guys get a lot out of it. Make sure if you have any questions to ask at the end. And they'll also be going through some graduate opportunities that they have as well. So I'll pass on to Alison now, who will continue with the presentation. And make sure, like Alison said in the chat, to ask any questions if you have any. Get the most out of it.
Yes, thank you so much for having us as well. I am joined here with GChan as well, I hope. Hi, GChan. And thank you so much, Kirthia. So just a little bit of housekeeping to start with as well. So down the bottom bar, obviously you can see your camera and microphone, so you can just turn them on and off. At the moment we're in present mode, so you won't be able to speak at the table, but afterwards, if you want to jump from table to table, meet new people, or have a chat with us, please feel free to. Also in the chat tab, if you open the chat tab, there's a chat, participants, and Q&A. So if you want to ask questions on the Q&A tab throughout this whole thing, please feel free to do so, and you can even vote on and just participate. So thank you everyone that's participating in the chat already. We also really appreciate that. So just before we get started, I wanted to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the lands that we meet today and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So as the title suggests, this is not just another CV workshop. We're going to go through some diverse topics and give some personal insights and stories throughout. So who are we first? I'm developer Ali. I'm joined here with GChan, and we're IBM developer advocates. So I have a mechatronics engineering and computer science degree from Wollongong, but I'm really passionate about community events and giving back like we're doing here today. And I'm joined here by GChan. GChan.
Thanks, Ali. So, I'm GChan. I actually studied a Bachelor of Commerce and Bachelor of Information Systems at UNSW. So really excited to have UNSW students here today. I'm also very passionate about giving back. So actually, I think I was counting today. I think I'm in about 4 mentoring programs this year. So just a nice way to give back, and as well as being here today and presenting this workshop.
Exactly. So like we said before, if you've got any questions or comments throughout the workshop, please feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. I actually already noticed that there's 3 upvotes on my Ask Any Questions. I'd like to know the meaning of life. I also throw that in. I don't be silly, I already know it's 42, but please feel free to throw those in if you want. So initially, and props to the RoboGirls New South Wales for doing this, they sent out what you're most interested in or would like the most assistance with, wanted to hear about. So the top 3 were really career path and goal setting, interview and application tips, and communication and networking. So we've thrown them all together into what we like to call not just another CV workshop. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about the 4 keys to success, S, U, C, and E. See, this is why I wear this hat. So like when I face palm, I don't get hurt. But no, we're talking about setting goals. So I've got some cool tips for that. And I love setting goals. I think it's imperative and I think it really helps. Cultivating a growth mindset and resilience. So that enables you to not just see opportunities that are out there, but also to see things that maybe you think are setbacks as an opportunity to learn and grow as well. Also talking about personal branding, networking, and getting involved. And as Robo Gals volunteers, you're already like way across that. So props to you and well done on getting involved and giving back to your community as well. And you never know where those opportunities will take you. I've got a little story about that later. And GChan also has some awesome prepping for interviews tips to give you. So firstly, I just want to know if everyone can get out their phones or their device and go to menti.com and enter the code 7633954. I want to know who has a list of goals for the next 1 to 5 years. So I'll just give that a few minutes there as well. Thanks, GChan. Oh, hello. Yep, kind of is a big answer. Awesome, well done. And there's no right or wrong answer here. Feel free to say no. That's totally fine. That's why you're here, right? To learn something new. And honestly, I didn't do it for a long time either. Oh, look at you, all high achievers. Love it. So a good reason, good thing.
Wow, you guys are brilliant.
Way ahead. I'm just going to skip this whole section then. I think like they've got this. On menti.com with the code 7633954, you should be able to vote there. If not, all good. We might just give it a few more seconds and then move on. This kind of looks like the French flag at the moment, doesn't it? It's like blue, white, red.
I get all my flags mixed up, so.
That's the French one, now you know, tricolour.
No, but then, what if like the red is on the left side and
yeah, then that's a different vote. Yeah. Anyway, this is not Sheldon's Fun with Flags show, so we'll move on from there. All right, awesome. So it seems like you guys are well ahead of the curve. So that's amazing. Props to you guys. So I think setting goals is really imperative. So well done for you that have some goals, even if you just said kind of there. To me, setting goals means that you're thinking about them, even if they're just in the back of your mind, about a few things you might want to do. And in situations where an opportunity comes up, your mind will make that connection. So well done for setting goals. I also think it's imperative just because, you know, well, this infographic actually says 3% of adults who have specific measurable time-bound goals achieve 10 times as much as possible, more than people that have no goals. And I also like to think of it as, how do you know what success is if you haven't written down what success is for you? So even if they're just small things, even if your aim is, and I did this last week, so aim is just to get a little bit fitter, I deliberately set out to do 10 minutes of exercise a day. And some of you, like maybe that's easy for you. For me, I'm not a big fan. So I had to force myself, but I found after doing that for a couple of weeks, I was enjoying it. So it depends what success means to you. But anyway, I'm going on. How do you set goals? So use SMART goals. So that means it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's result focused, and it's time bound. So there's a lot of research out there on that. But for example, if we go back to my goal of wanting to get a little bit fitter, what I did is broke it down to be specific. I want to do 10 minutes of exercise per day minimum. It's measurable. Well, it's 10 minutes per day, so I could track my progress on that. And I did use a little tracker of streak tracker, basically. It's achievable. So it was something that I could get my head around and do. 10 minutes is nothing. I could talk myself into that. If I'd gone, I want to do an hour a day, I never would have done it. It's results focused. Well, I mean, it's pretty results focused. Maybe my idea of getting fitter could have used a little bit more refinement there. So what was the end result of this goal? And it's time bound, well, 10 minutes. But I probably could have gone 10 minutes a day for 30 days minimum. That would have been a better time bound for that. So specific goals really focus your attention. So that's what SMART goals are about. And that was just a little me example, but you can see how that you could expand that out to your studies, to your career, to 5-10 years down the road. And that's the point of that little system. So I also want to talk a little bit about Ikeguy, because when you're setting your goals, you don't want to just set some goal that society expects you to get to, for example. You want to set goals that are meaningful to you. Because to me, you only have one life, and success is really about figuring out what it is that you want to do with your life, how you want to live it. So Ikeguy is really this concept. It's not just about setting goals based on what other people expect for you, from society expects from you. And let's face it, there's a lot of, outside influences happening around. So Ikeguy is a Japanese concept that really gets to the heart of your goals. So what are you passionate about? What are you good at? What do you love doing? What can you make your mission and be paid for? So this job, at the moment, the job that I'm in, I feel like this is a job where it really kind of hooks up to my Ikeguy. I love reaching out. I love speaking to people like you. I love being part of the community, and I love developing as well. So it really kind of brings a lot of my interests together, and I can get paid for it. So that's kind of the concept of Ikeguy. And to me, if you love walking dogs and that's all you've ever wanted to do, I think you'll be successful and passionate about that, and you can make money out of it, and you will find a way to make it a success because you love getting up and doing it. So that's the concept. The other little trick that I've got for goal setting is to ask yourself the 5 whys. So when you set a goal, you really want to internalize it. Like, why are you doing it? Because that's really what motivates you the most. So I used an analogy earlier that's not really a very good one because I don't really like marathons. But my analogy was like, if you want to run a marathon, for example, if that's your goal, why do you want to do it? So maybe the first thing that comes up is, oh, I just want to have that ticked off on my bucket list. Okay, then dig deeper. What's the second? Well, why do you want to have that ticked off your bucket list? Oh, because I think, I really admire the people that have that kind of dedication, and I want to go through that experience myself. Okay, well, why do you like that kind of dedication? So that's the idea. On each step, you dig a little bit deeper about why you really want to do it until you get to your core reason for that. So that's a little trick I learned a while ago, and I kind of love doing because it helps you internalize your real, it helps you focus, like, why do you want to do this goal? So I love setting goals because, good fortune, and I love this quote too, is what happens when opportunity meets with planning. And I've said this a few times before. I don't really believe in luck. What I believe in is making plans, getting out there and just seeing opportunities when they come along. And you can really put yourself in a position to be in that opportunity bubble, so to speak, because your mind's thinking about where you want to go. You're getting out there and doing things towards that goal. And that's really when luck comes up, in my opinion. So some quick questions there that you might ask when you're setting goals. I won't go too far into it because I tend to keep talking. You can ask GChan about that. But what does success look like in the next 6 months, a year, 5 years? We'll also hand out this deck afterwards so you guys can go back through it if you like. What are you looking for in a job? So this is an important one to me because a lot of the time when you're a grad or you're at uni or you're still studying, and you're like, oh, I've got to get a job, and then all your fears come up and I'm never going to be good enough, and that's actually goes into my next slide. But what I really encourage you to do is flip the script and go, well, what is it that I'm passionate about? Where do I see myself going in a career? What sort of workplace do I like? What are my top 3 priorities there? Like, is it learning opportunities? Is it an opportunity to work on great projects? Is it opportunity to work on lots of different projects to find out what you enjoy if you haven't quite discovered that yet? So I really encourage you to think about, where you want to go rather than the fears of getting there. But speaking about the fears of getting there, part of setting goals really is about tackling your fears as well. And there's no secrets to success. It's a result of prep, hard work, and learning from failure. And also growth mindset and resilience, which GChan is going to talk about in a little bit, will help you with that part of it as well. But I'd really encourage you, when you're setting goals, to dream big and try not to let your fears hold you back. For example, I was speaking to a super successful woman the other day, and she was telling me, I think I asked her, what did she want to do in 10 years? And she said to me, maybe be an exec. And I'm like, you really wanted to say you wanted to be the CEO, didn't you? And she was holding herself back. So that's just a little example. But some of your fears might be, I'll never get a job in the current climate. Definitely encourage you to challenge that, because there's still jobs out there. You're still a valuable asset to those jobs. And whilst it might be, maybe it seems more competitive, maybe it's different, but definitely challenge that point. Is that really true? Or is there a positive side of my fear is another one. So I'm an international student. I'll be the last on the list. Is that really true? Don't you have a host of valuable skills and experiences that you bring to the role? Perhaps you speak another language, who knows? But there's a lot of things you can bring to the role that are positive on the flip side. And just as a quick personal example as well, so I went back to uni when I was 30, and I finally finished uni at 36. So I could have said, I'll be too old to start a career at 36. And I know I don't look old, thanks for that. But no, I could have said, worried about that and gone, I'm never going to get a role. I'll have to take a step backwards. But instead what I thought was, well, I've got a host of experience with life and with different things that I'm going to bring to a role that employers are going to be grateful for. So that's how I chose to think about that. So I really encourage you to try and think in a different way about those. It's all about perspective sometimes. Or I didn't get good enough marks at uni might be another one as well. But you're a part of RoboGirls for a start. You're going to these events, you're networking, you're making connections, you're doing things in your own way. So, and I honestly don't remember the last time someone asked me what marks I got at uni. So they are important. Definitely don't encourage you to fail, but they're not the be all and end all. So just shift your perspective if these are things you're worried about as well. So now you've set some goals, but now what? So some of them might be grand, big dreams, and I encourage that as well. Definitely do that. But understand that you can't do everything at once. So a lot of the times when you've got a heap of things on, you're going through your days, you've got like 10 different goals set up, and you try to kind of, reach them all at once. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to break them down. And, it's the classic saying, if you haven't heard it before, I really love it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's what you do with goals. So prioritize your goals each month. I like to pick 2 or 3 that I can break down and achieve a little bit every day or every week, like the 10 minutes of exercise thing. I also try and do like 10 minutes of reading. So just things like that you can break it down and you still are creating good habits for yourself. So I do this using Trello, which is a little bit like a Kanban board. You can just write tasks on it. You can separate them. I like to put them in future things, just so I'm thinking about it in the back of my mind when maybe an opportunity comes up. So you can ask GChan, but I love Trello. I've got like 50 boards. It's everywhere.
Yeah, we'll start a day like with a meeting, and then something be like, oh, we need to put this somewhere. And then Ali will be like, oh, we'll create a Trello board. And everyone's like, oh, another one? Are we sure?
So not everyone shares my love of Trello boards. That's one way I like to do it. But so you've got these goals, and I'm sure you've done this before, and then you get down the track a little bit and you're like, oh, I've just completely forgotten to do anything about that. So if it's an important goal to you, if it's a priority goal to you, find a mentor or find someone that can help you stay accountable to these goals. buddy that's got a similar goal and is in a similar position. For example, you're maybe all looking for grad roles next year, and you want to do a little bit of work on that each week. We'll set up a time and do that together. Like, that's a good way to keep yourself accountable. Share your goals with others. So don't be afraid to tell other people, this is what I want to do with my life. Even that is just affirming it in your mind. And getting you thinking about it, because other people will ask you questions. You'll maybe think about new things there. And the other one I love is writing your goals and putting them somewhere visible. So near your bed, on your bathroom mirror, but don't overwhelm yourself. Just do a couple of things at once, and make sure they're priority goals. And the last point I'd like to make is that don't be afraid to change your goals, because you might get a little bit down the path and find, oh, well, actually, I don't really have any real motivation for this anymore, or, I'm not really enjoying this anymore. Don't be afraid to change your goals instead of just pushing through and doing something you don't like. And alternatively as well, if you've stumbled upon something that you love, don't be afraid to take that path either. So have a bit of flexibility there. Don't try and, you're not a robot, you're a human being, and life's a journey, and we're all on a different one, and it's rarely ever a straight path. So GChan, growth mindset and resilience. I think I spoke a little bit about this, but love to hear some more.
Absolutely. So just on the goal one, when I was studying for HSC quite a while back, I actually stuck a goal on the ceiling of my roof. And it had been there for so long that after I actually took it down after my HSC, it had left sticky tape marks. So I've got 4 sticky tape marks on my roof in my bedroom.
Still reminding you of the goal.
Still reminding me of that goal when I had it back then.
That's awesome.
Okay, so onto growth mindset and resilience. So I do like to start sections with some quotes that I like. So starting with Albert Einstein, failure is success in progress. And then there's one that I think I created, but don't quote me on it, but I quoted it myself. Failing is not a reason to stop trying. So if we move to the next slide, I'd like to get you guys to jump back onto menti.com and enter the code 7633954. And I'll have to share my screen as well. And I just want you to answer the question, what does resiliency mean to you? So
we're just going to create a little cloud map out of this. So a few words to describe what you think resiliency is to you. We get some really great answers from people out of this one too. So yep, grab your phones, 7633954. I sound like I'm saying the lotto numbers or something.
Strength.
Yeah, perfect.
Robust.
A bingo game. It's a little bit, Christine.
Never giving up, staying motivated. Awesome.
Getting some cool answers here.
Staying fast. Okay. You got to be quick, I guess.
Too quick, too pretty. They used to say that about Ali, the boxer.
Too fast, too furious.
Yeah. Well, that's another debate.
Becoming better. Yep, I'm loving these. Alrighty, so it looks like that's all, but amazing. So you kind of have a general idea of what resiliency means. So I'll actually get into the content of what I was trying to say today. So starting with an actual definition of what is resilient or resilience is being resilient basically means you're able to bounce back when something happens. Like a challenge or something personal happens, and basically you're able to pick yourself up and continue walking after you've been struck down. Being resilient enables us to protect ourselves from getting too overwhelmed by stress, especially when you're studying at uni. You're going to get overwhelmed. You've got 4 assignments due, and then you've got an exam the next day. I know how it feels. Ali knows how it feels. But basically, being resilient is to stop yourself from becoming overwhelmed and protecting yourself from, potentially developing some mental health issues, and creating a better well-being and that sort of thing. So actually, some of the world's most significant inventions, which again, Thomas Edison comes into play. And we all know the light bulb, electric light bulb. And actually, he had failed about 10,000 times before he got that to work. So he spent majority of his life failing. But look at his success. He created the light bulb, motion picture, and various other things.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that as well, you might be working towards your goal and find something different, like you think you're failing. So, for example, the non-slip coating that you have on fry pans, that was an accidental discovery. So there you go, because I was trying to make something else. So there you go. Anyway, a little story I had to put in there.
Thanks for that story. So actually, what makes a person resilient? So psychologists have actually identified a few characteristics of people that are resilient. So firstly, positive attitude, optimism, the ability to actually control your emotions, and seeing failure as a form of learning and feedback.
Teflon. It really fits in perfectly to resilience. Teflon, that's the non-stick coating.
Teflon.
It just bounces right off.
Okay, so thank you. Another way to actually look at resilience is to look at fixed and growth mindset. So this is a method by Carol Dweck. Hopefully you guys have heard of this. What is this? This theory before. So basically, Carol found in her research that if you believe that you can always grow your brain, your character, abilities, and that sort of thing, you are more likely to succeed in life. So just by having this belief, you will always grow. And this is basically what a growth mindset is. So if I give you an example, for example, if you received negative feedback, which you might from, a group assignment or, I don't know, something else in life, instead of dwelling on that negative feedback, you actually use that feedback to improve. And basically with the growth mindset, you basically might...
You take it as a learning challenge, right? So
yeah.
You can always get something positive or something good out of it. So maybe you think you failed because you didn't quite hit your goal this time, but it's same as the light bulb, same as Teflon. You can think about that in different ways that help you, grow as a person. And the next time you come up to a challenge like that, it's going to be easier because you've already thought about how to learn and grow from it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ali. I'm having a mind blank. So the fixed mindset, as you would imagine, would be the opposite. And this is where people believe that their abilities, their skills, their intelligence, they're all fixed traits. So, for example, if I fail, that basically means I can't do it. Or if I fail, or I'm not smart enough. If this is too hard, I'm going to give up. So these are all sort of traits that you see in a fixed mindset. So, there are ways to actually develop a growth mindset. So some people think that, these things are, the people that have fixed mindsets believe that these things can't be developed and can't be learnt. But in a growth mindset, it's actually telling you, we can learn this, we can build our abilities and strengths, etc. So Here's just a few ways that you can actually develop a growth mindset. So starting with, I'm just going in random order, by the way. So embracing challenges as opportunities. So we did speak about this earlier. Any challenge is basically an opportunity to learn and gain experience or gain knowledge to better improve yourself. Value the process over the end result. So think about how you got to where you are and give yourself a pat on the back. Give yourself the acknowledgement that you deserve. Like, you know, the journey that you took, that's all time and effort that you put in. So make sure you're always acknowledging that you've put in that effort, and don't worry about the outcome. So I'll give you an example. When I was applying for grad roles, there was one role that I really, really, really wanted, and unfortunately I didn't get that role. So instead of actually like crying over getting rejected, what I did was actually reached out and asked for some feedback onto, you know, how I could have improved myself. And it's through that feedback that I actually then landed my grad role at IBM. So by failing the first time, I was able to use that learning to succeed in the next opportunity. And then another tip would be to try different learning techniques. So, you know, everyone has a different learning technique, and that's totally fine. Just keep in mind that, you know, what works for someone else might not work for you. So I am a very visual learner. I like watching videos. I don't like reading. Whereas, you know, there are some other people that love reading, and they're able to gather the same sort of information, but, you know, it doesn't work for me. And just be okay with that. Be okay to not being able to learn the same way someone else does. So those are some ways to develop a growth mindset.
Yeah, I like to think of it as well as kind of being a scientist about your own life and what makes you tick and what helps you to achieve things. But there's also some great research out there on those sort of things as well. And this is another, so this is kind of flows from that. So the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, or the frequency illusion, is, for example, when you're thinking about buying a new car, or you've just learned the name of a new tree or something, and I've done this, that's why I said tree. But when you're thinking about buying a new car and you've kind of picked a brand and you're like, I really like that one, I think I'll get that one, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. I don't know if that's happened to you or a similar experience. I also once learned about the boab tree. And all of a sudden I saw boab trees everywhere, like so random. But that's called the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. And I'm bringing this up because by developing that growth mindset, you'll start seeing opportunities everywhere instead of just challenges. Like by focusing on where you want to go and what you're looking for, all of a sudden you start seeing opportunities rather than challenges, or at least I think you do. So that's my top tip, is to write 2 to 3 points on what you learn out of an experience every time to help you build this kind of this new perspective, this frequency illusion. So I think we're getting a little bit late on time, but I just want to share why I said grades aren't everything as well. So I got quite involved when I was at uni. I loved it. And you all know what that's like because you're all here being RoboGirl volunteers. So kudos to you guys for that and for being involved and helping your societies. That is a big way that you can network. And you never know where the outcome of that is. So my little story is on how I got my current role actually is I actually was involved in a hackathon. That's me in the big purple jumpsuit there. I don't know what those things were, but they were fun. This was a hackathon back in 2015 that I helped organise with the WIT Society, so Wollongong IT Society. And this is actually where I met my colleague, developer Steve, who rang me up at the beginning of this year and said, hey, Ali, I've got a really great role for you. So I got it. So you just never know where that might go. My other big tips for networking are so if you've got a networking event, or like this one, for example, you don't know some people, or if you go and see a conference, but you're afraid to ask some questions, or you're kind of not sure what to say to people you've never met before, one of my good top tips is to develop a 30-second elevator pitch for yourself. So when someone asks you, you've kind of already got this little script, and don't just make it a resume script. Throw some fun facts in there. You never know what you might have in common with someone else, or maybe mention that a cool event and what you got out of it that you went to the other day. And I encourage you to overcome shyness by realizing that this is also a growth muscle, and you can work on that as well. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because we're kind of running low on time, and I don't want to hold everyone up. But so my other big favorite is LinkedIn, and especially now while there's kind of limited opportunity to do face-to-face events, like we're all here today in space, out of this world, so to speak. LinkedIn is really your friend. This is what can enable you. It's a living dynamic resume, basically. It gives you exposure. And there's a lot of great tips out there on how to fill out your profile and bio. And you can also start following people and groups that you love. If you meet someone, I encourage you to add them on LinkedIn. That's actually how I got my first job straight out of uni, because I went to an event somewhere and I met someone there. So you just never know where these things can take you. Be genuine about it, though. Don't just add people because you want to grow your number of people on your list. Add them because you've met them and you genuinely admired them. And I think GChan has a great tip for when you are adding people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So just very quickly, so if you are going to add someone on LinkedIn, send a personalized invite. It basically a bit of like relevancy and reminds that person what common interests you had, and they just feel better. That would be my tip.
Definitely. And you can place them in context as well, and it helps begin a relationship as well, rather than just adding them and then you just added them, so what, you never talk to them again. That's really a good opportunity to have your first impression. So I think we're going to move on to interview prep now. What are your top tips for interview prep, GChan?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I'm going to speed straight through it. So research, you're going to research the product or services that the company you want to work for offers. You want to research the role to make sure you're applying for something you are interested in, and research the company culture just to understand, does their culture fit with your personality. The second is actually to prepare for interview questions. 4 main types: behavioral, situational, skills-based, and case study Q&A. The I find is behavioral, and generally speaking, you would respond to a behavioral question using the STAR method or the CAR method. They're basically the same thing, but situation, task, action, and result. So if you can answer any of those behavioral questions in that way, I'll give you 10 points. Third is to do a mock interview with a mentor or someone who has experience, like your parents, and they can give you some feedback. So I recently did a mock interview with one of my mentees, and I asked him some questions on the first week, provided him some feedback, asked him the same questions the following week, and he had improved like tenfold. They were concise and they were good. So then that leads very well into my 4th, 5th, and 6th tip, which is to practice, practice, and practice. And you've probably heard a million times by now, practice makes perfect or almost perfect, and that's the best you can ask for. And by practicing interviews, you actually relieve some of the anxiety, and it can actually improve your confidence. So that's always a bonus. So after you've practiced, you're feeling really good about yourself, then start preparing some questions that you might want to ask your interviewer. So some examples could be, what does a typical day look like for whoever's interviewing you? Why do they like working there? And just to understand and develop that relationship, as Ali was speaking about. And then after you've actually gone through the interview, prepare for a follow-up. So this is usually via email, but you can always call them as well. But basically kind of remind them that, hello, I'm still here. I'd love to have feedback on how I went today or whenever it was. And it shows the recruiter that you're genuinely interested in that position. And it also gives you one last opportunity to bring up any points that you've forgotten.
Totally. And don't be, if you do, like we were saying earlier, thanks for those, and I won't go on too long, but like we were saying earlier, if you don't get it and you're a bit heartbroken about it, you know, find out what you can learn from that. I remember going for my dream job about a year and a half ago now, and I got through the first 2 rounds and didn't get to the 3rd round, basically. And instead of being upset about that, I started a trusty old Trello board on how I could blow them away if I interviewed again in a year. So yes, I was a bit disappointed that I didn't get it, but I also recognized there was things I could improve, and I wrote down a list of things I could improve and how I would go about doing that. So yeah. Oh, awesome. RoboGirls is hosting mock interviews with KPMG. Awesome. Definitely encourage you to participate in that. So just in closing, coming up that you might be interested in. So we've got an Oz Internet of Things meetup on the 7th of October, next Wednesday. We have some really cool speakers for that. One of them even built up his own radio station, public community radio station from the ground up. He's talking. And then we've got an IBM developer meetup the week after that. And that's about artificial intelligence in healthcare. And we've got one of our research, we've got a research lab. IBM has research labs, in case you didn't know, which are really cool. And I think Christine might be talking about them in a second. So we've got one of the employees from the research lab who's going to talk to us about her AI in health project. And a guy from University of Sydney who's awesome, entrepreneur. He created a AI in health project on the side, and he's going to talk to us about that. So we've got some resources as well, but I'll send out the slides for you. Otherwise, I'd like to welcome Christine to the stage, and thank you everyone for listening to us. If you do have any questions here or on LinkedIn, and welcome Christine.
Hello, thank you. So I'm mindful that we've got about 5 minutes to go, so I don't want to, go into too much detail. Really, I just want to let you know that our graduate program opportunities are open at the moment. So if you do want to, have a quick look, you can search IBM graduate program Sydney 2021. I assume everyone here is from Sydney. But yeah, we do have a number of opportunities open at the moment. So one of those consulting stream, the PowerPoint now. One of those is the consulting stream, one of those is the developer stream, and the other is the data scientist. So as a quick overview, for the consulting roles, we are looking for students who perhaps are from business backgrounds, maybe also computer science or engineering backgrounds as well. And what a day-to-day could look like is going to vary quite a lot, depending on the project.
Sorry, Christine, there's just a question in the Q&A. Is the graduate program an internship?
Is the graduate program an internship?
Yeah, so the question in the Q&A is the graduate program an internship?
Okay, so the graduate program is different. So graduate program is for students who have completed their degree no earlier. So if you're starting in 2021 as a graduate, then you, to be eligible, it is that you've not completed your degree prior to 2019. So if you're finished your degree in 2020, then you're eligible for the 2021 graduate program. It is a full-time permanent role. The internship is different. It's for students who are still currently studying and will be studying throughout the duration of the internship. So our internships are for 12 months. They run as well as a full-time program, and that's really because we find that it gives the interns an opportunity to really dig deep, become a little bit of an expert in their area, rather than leaving after sort of 2 or 3 months. So by having that 12-month internship, they really get the most value out of it, and they can also add a lot of value into the work that they're doing. So with the internships, similarly, internships and graduate programs, the eligibility requirement there is Australian citizenship. I know that's a question that students typically ask. And that's because a lot of the times with the clients that we're working with, there are certain requirements around security and things like that. As you can see here, developer role, and this may be relevant to some of you if you are studying those sort of technical degrees. Developers we are looking for in a couple of different teams, our cloud team, our blockchain team, the IoT team, etc. And then finally, the data science. So if you are studying sort of analytics or data science or actuarial studies, those type of degrees would be most relevant to this role. In saying that, we don't sort of box or pigeonhole people just purely based on their degree. IBM's a really sort of choose your own adventure kind of company. So what we find is that, there's no real cookie cutter career for graduates in IBM, and for any sort of employee inside of IBM, there's lots of opportunity to move and grow, really depending on your personal skills and your personal interests. So what you'll find is that when you are, if you do apply for these programs and you go through the screenings and interviews, we really try and understand what it is that you are particularly passionate about, what your goals are, like Ali and like GChan have talked about earlier today. Really understand those so that we can find, where you might best align inside of IBM. So that is a little bit about the graduate program, and we actually also touched on the internship. But just for your awareness, I know the other question that we tend to get is, is the graduate program, is there a rotation? So not for 2021, we used to do rotations, but what we found, again, is that, if graduates are rotating every 6 months, it doesn't really give them that opportunity to fully immerse and add value to the work that they're doing. So yeah, we've removed the rotation component, but again, that gives them the opportunity to really become an expert, really upskill, really get the full training for their specific role. So that was the graduate program, and then it just lists a couple of those highlights there around the mentoring, the lunch and learn development sessions, recognition events, social events, etc. And then the internship, which we've also just talked about as well. I'll pause there because we're bang on 6 o'clock. I'll stop sharing my screen, and if there's any further questions, I'm happy to answer those. Otherwise, I'll hand it back to the hosts.
Thanks so much, Christine. I think is Kirthia, are you still with us?
Just before that, there was just a question from Jason. What happens at the end of a grad or intern program?
Good question.
Excellent question. Really depends. So for the internships, once you finish an internship, you may choose to come back as a grad and look at other teams that might be hiring graduate positions, or you might like to continue doing the work that you've done. What we find is that interns will typically change roles rather than do the exact same thing from an intern to a grad. And then for the graduate program, at the end of the program, you're a full-time employee. So you'll continue to, roll on and become a regular employee. Again, it would just depend if, you want to continue in that particular role or if you want to change into something else.
And just one last question is, would it be possible to apply for non-grad roles, i.e. like experienced roles, without a citizenship or PR or visa?
Yeah, good question. Sometimes it is possible. We find that those opportunities are a little bit limited just because they are quite niche, just based on, again, the requirements around a lot of the clients we work with and those type of things. So if you are, in a situation where you're an international student and things like that, we would to have a look at the IBM Careers website and see if there are roles that interest you, maybe even sign up for the job alerts. There are some early career or early professional roles on the site, but again, they're for typically really niche skills. So yeah, best to kind of check the website at that time.
Awesome. Okay, that seems to be it. Kirika couldn't join us, so I'll be concluding. We have one more question. Christine, do you want to hop back on?
Yep.
So the question is for all positions, so Dev, Consult, and Data Science for grads and interns, will candidates be asked to complete some sort of coding tests, or what's the recruitment process?
Yep, sure. So once you have applied and gone through the screening, so when I say screening, you'll just complete some forms to say whether or not you require an accommodation. So if you require accommodation for disability and any other reason, then we'll take that into consideration. Otherwise, you'll be sent the invitation to complete the online test. That online test is similar to a lot of online tests that you would do when you're applying for lots of companies. It's sort of like a gamified test, which will be timed, generally about 30 minutes, and it'll ask you to do a whole bunch of sort of problem-solving activities. If you successfully complete that test and your results meet the requirements, i.e. A credit average, then you will be invited to complete to go through an interview with someone from the recruitment team, and from there we'll sort of work out where you might best align into one of those streams: dev, consulting, data scientist. And then from there, potentially 2 rounds of interviews with the managers of the team. So I say potentially 2 interviews only because with some of the teams, they might do 1 interview and then 1 kind of case study. Some just do the 2 interviews, which are discussion based, and the girls have talked about, using the STAR method for behavioural questions. So that's very common. But yeah, for some specific teams, they may also get you to do some sort of case study or complete some sort of exercise or do a bit of a storytelling activity, just depending on the role.
Yeah. Okay. So that seems to conclude the event. Thank you so much, Ali and Gloria, for working with Robogals to host this event. I know I learned a lot, and I hope everyone who attended learned a lot as well, and they can apply all the skills you taught us. Thank you so much, Christine, also for telling us about the IBM recruitment process. And I really hope that all of you are considering applying. Just to conclude, Robogals has a few upcoming events. So we'd encourage everyone from UNSW to join. So we have a trivia coming up next week just as a social event. We also have the All About MedTech event, which basically has someone from Randstad talking about the field of MedTech. So that will be on Monday. And we also have the KPMG mock interviews, which is a really good opportunity to practice your interview skills. So make sure you like the Robogals Facebook page. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you at the next event.